we can now report that U.S. strikes in both Syria and Iraq at spots at locations in both of those countries have begun. That is official from 2 U.S. defense officials.
As you just heard, the United States military has begun striking targets in both Syria and Iraq as part of their retaliation against Iran-backed forces after the death of 3 United States service members in Jordan. Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon elaborated more on what to expect following these initial bombings.
What we have been expecting all afternoon and for days now, frankly, is that the U.S. campaign led by U.S. Central Command, which will involve, we're told, air assets as well as sea assets as well as space assets. This is going to be a multi-tiered campaign. It's going to last days. It's going to strike multiple targets. I'm told upwards of a dozen to 2 dozen targets in Syria and Iraq, targeting those Iranian proxy forces, the bases where they store the rockets, the drones, the command and control, and that is what they're going to be focusing on.
As there often is with breaking news, there was some initial confusion in regards to the strikes. A little more on that. ABC News reported an initial battery of strikes in Syria did not come from the United States, sources say. US strikes are still anticipated. However, shortly thereafter, additional confirmation came from US sources that the military did indeed strike Syria. And President Biden and other top US leaders had been warning for days that the United States would strike back at the militias. And they made it clear that it's not just going to be one hit, but a tiered response over time. So this from a statement from the president. This afternoon, at my direction, US military forces struck targets at facilities in Iraq and Syria that the IRGC and affiliated militia used to attack US forces. Our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. So some more details about the strikes that happened today. The massive barrage of strikes by manned and unmanned aircraft hit more than 85 targets at 7 locations, including command and control headquarters, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, drone and ammunition storage sites, and other facilities that were connected to the militias or the IRGC's Quds Force, the Guards expeditionary unit that handles Tehran's relationship and arming of regional militias. It continues on. US Central Command said the strikes used more than 125 precision munitions, and they were delivered by numerous aircraft, including long-range bombers flown from the United States. One official who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss details of the operation said B-1 bombers were used. Now, it was unclear what the next steps will be or whether the days of United States warnings have sent militia members scattering into hiding, which would make it more difficult to detect and strike them. Kataib Hezbollah, one of the main Iran-backed militias, did say in a previous statement that it was suspending attacks on American troops. But it's clear that that statement had no impact on the Biden administration's plans, and de-escalation was not a tactic they were interested in deploying here, especially given the ambiguity and the questions surrounding the strike in the first place, what the United States service members were doing in Jordan, why their anti-drone technology didn't intercept the strike and protect these 3 service members. But one thing is clear here, Jenkins, this is an escalation and nothing good is gonna come of this.
Yeah, so first let's talk about the pattern that I've seen now throughout my entire life, which is we go agitate in the Middle East. We, way back in the day, we used, well, not that back in the day, actually, we kind of did it in Iraq. If there was a leader we didn't like, and in some of the cases, like in Iran in the 1950s, it was a democratically elected leader, but he didn't let US corporations rob his people blind, so we deposed them, we did a coup. And so that is one example, but obviously we did it in Iraq a couple of times, etc. We go and agitate. Sometimes we do a massive invasion, sometimes it's strikes, sometimes it's just supporting Israel in whatever offensive campaign that they're doing. And then somebody strikes back and a couple of our guys die. And then we go, oh, oops, nobody could have seen that coming. No, I see it coming. And more of our troops will die because of what happened today. And then they go, well, what am I gonna do? We gotta widen the war. I mean, otherwise it'd be weak. What do you want us to do? 3 US troops killed? Do you want us to not seek vengeance? That'll be weak, that'll be appeasement. Broaden the war, Now all of a sudden, America is bombing Yemen, Iraq, and Syria right now as we speak. Why? That's insane. Don't tell me they killed 3 service members. They killed 3 service members because we went and bombed the living crap out of them and helped everyone who was bombing the living crap out of them. And then what do we expect them? Like, this is the Israeli logic, which is, why don't they love us? We're in the middle of bombing and killing them. We demand their love. Oh, they don't love us. That's it, bomb them more, bomb them more. Now we're in the middle of a giant war in the Middle East, bombing 3 different countries at once? What kind of lunacy is this? Totally absurd. So the neoconservatives are back. But this is what I told you, Joe Biden is not, I mean, what you think of a Democrat, you think like FDR, JFK, et cetera. He's not a Democrat, he's a Republican. He's been a Republican his whole life. He voted for the Iraq war. He votes for all the wars. He's totally controlled by defense contractors and by every other donor. So great, he brought neoconservatism back. And now, because he's a Democrat, we'll get a whole bunch, all of the Democratic leaders and all of the media will now bow. Oh yes, of course, war, we need bigger war, wider war. Let's get into another giant war. Oh man, the one they really want to go after is Iran. By the way, if you don't know, the neoconservatives way back in the day, before Iraq war, before 9/11, did a policy paper. General Wesley Clark outed them and many others did, but they outed themselves oftentimes writing about it. And they intended to attack 7 different Muslim countries in the Middle East and to depose all of their leaders and basically take over and put in puppets who will serve us instead. Now, do you want to know who one of the original neocons were? Now, you might know some of the names if you studied this, Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, Don Rumsfeld, et cetera. But not every neoconservative was from America. One of the original neoconservatives was a guy named Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's been trying to get us to attack all of his enemies in the Middle East for the last 20 years. Congrats, it's another victory for Netanyahu. He's now dragged America into the middle of the most needless war in the world. So what? We could support our so-called ally in brutalizing 5 million Palestinians and to oppress them for decade after decade. That's the noble cause for which we are starting a gigantic war in the Middle East? So dumb, so immoral. And look, if you don't want me to point out that Benjamin Netanyahu is stronger than any American president and control American foreign policy, I'm sorry, but my job is to deliver the news. And you've all seen it. Obama didn't want Netanyahu to come back when he was president, and Congress ignored Obama, and they went and he gave a speech to our Congress, and they gave him standing ovations when he was saying that our policy was wrong and that we should adopt his policy. And here we are, a Republican or Democratic president, it doesn't matter. Here we are doing exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu wanted. Wow, what a strong country we are.
Yeah, I think one of the best points that you made is the reality of Joe Biden and that he's a conservative. And often what people forget about that is that's a lot of why he won in 2020 and a lot of why he was able to rally corporate America and even conservatives to his side and going into 2024 in terms of polling numbers that could end up being his saving grace, which is sad, but it's a reality because, as you pointed out, he's a Republican and he always has been. But on a broader note, it seems to me, you mentioned throughout your life what you've seen, and throughout my life, what I've seen is the United States always has some reason to be at war because we invest so much in it. I mean, like war and conflict is a reality of not just humanity, but all living things. But just like everything else in life, what we feed tends to grow. I mean, every single year, administration, you pointed out, whether it's Republican or Democrat, the military constantly gets more money. The budget gets increased no matter who's in there. And you can see with Joe Biden, I mean, it's not as if Joe Biden doesn't know that the conflict in Gaza is really hurting his polling numbers in like the swing states and stuff. But look at how much influence the military industrial complex has. He's like, I can't, he passed that little executive order the other day that I think sanctions 4 people and opens the door for a little more. But Nothing really, because it's like, do I really want to have that fight? Because the military is that powerful. 800 bases around the world. I mean, somebody's bound to get hurt. Somebody's bound to get hit up. There's always an excuse. So at the end of the day, we invest too much in it, and unfortunately, we all got to pay the price. But this is what our tax dollars go towards.
You know what? I'm going to give the last word to one of our members. Lou B wrote in, funniest line in every wartime announcement, quote, it'll last for days. Oh, I'm sure. And by the way, I love that comment, and I love our members. I thank you for being part of the show, tyt.com/join. So, because that's what they're saying on TV right now. And yeah, maybe this round of bombing lasts a couple of days, and then the next round of bombing, and the next round of, but this is exactly how we get dragged into every single war. And do you know, if Young Turks is the longest running daily show in the history of the internet. So we were actually around before the Iraq war. And at the time, the neoconservatives said that the Iraq war would cost $1.2 billion. It cost trillions, okay? They said we would be greeted as liberators, I'm not making this up, and that they would throw roses at our feet. Every time it's the same load of crap, and they get their puppets in media to go vomit that crap out to the American people to brainwash them. And you remember Brian Williams when Trump bombed Syria? Oh, Trump, the anti-war guy who bombed Syria, murdered the top Iranian general, pulled us out of a peace deal in Iran, moved our embassy in Israel, all to agitate for what? More war. No matter who you vote for, all you ever get is more war and a bunch of idiots on TV going, oh, it'll only last a couple of days, and they'll throw roses at our feet, and we'll be greeted as liberators. In America, we stand for freedom. That's why we had to murder people in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria, and then we had to help Israel murder people in Gaza, and they had to light the whole world on fire, and then we had to go and add more to the fire, but everything's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be great. Because we're the good guys, and remember, dirty, dirty Muslims, bad guys. We had to kill more of them. I don't know why they hate us though. In the infamous words of Joe Scarborough, he literally said this once. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us because they hate us. He said it 3 times. The effing moron that apparently Biden listens to more than anyone else. Oh, that's your trenchant analysis for the Middle East and why we just coincidentally get dragged into every single goddamn war in the Middle East for the last 20, 30 years. Was they hate us because they hate us? Okay, I will counter with maybe they hate us because we keep occupying, bombing, and killing them. Wow, what a revolutionary thought, but not allowed on television because television is filled with liars who do propaganda for indecent leaders that start endless wars for profit. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.